Hi, this is a video just about supply teaching for anyone that has any questions, that is thinking about going into it, or even if you already are and you want to see if your experience is similar. This is my supply teaching story. So I worked in mental health for a time until I was about 24, and then thought this isn't quite right. I need to do something else. And I decided to just go for teacher training at primary, mainly because I thought, I'm not sure I can do that. And I'm quite competitive with myself. And then I had to kind of prove that I could. I don't know why it sounds a bit crazy saying it like that, but that's me. So I applied at Warwick. It was all about to be kind of cut off, deadline was there, and managed to get in, thought that it was all meant to be, did my year of training, somehow got a permanent job. That had its own ups and downs. It didn't go very well for the first year, but I don't think any probation year really does, especially in teaching. It's like the learning to drive after you've passed your test analogy. But I got through it by the skin of my teeth and worked in the same school for it must have been about 8 years. So I guess I went into teaching a bit later than some people traditionally do. I was about 24, but not mega late. Was okay there until the point where I had a baby. So I got married, a year later got pregnant, and always expected to go back to work part-time after I'd had a baby, because that's what others at my work had done. I just took it for granted that would happen. It didn't happen. The head teacher at the school at the time said we already had enough job shares. She didn't want any more. This was particularly awful news because COVID hit a week after my daughter was born. Week before my daughter was born. Change that. It was all around that period of time anyway. And if you see my birth story video, that's mega detailed in there, so please feel free to watch it. But yeah, life completely turned upside down for everyone. Not the best time to have a newborn in some ways. In other ways, actually quite a good time, because you are so distracted from a global pandemic because you've got to take care of a human. So the point is that me and my baby spent the year of maternity leave pretty much just us. Her dad was around in the evenings, but he worked. He was furloughed for the first 8 weeks, as some people were, which gave us a really lovely window of the three of us being together. And then it was just me and her every day. And because things were not happening, you couldn't see people. When you could, you had to keep the 2 metre distance. Baby classes, things like that were all cancelled or online. It was all few and far between that you ever really saw anyone. So we had, me and my daughter, the most amazing bond because we really only ever had each other. So the year was coming to an end, and I approached work like you do and sort of said, can I come back part-time? What's the days? What's the deal? What are the options? And got a no, which was awful, and I was not prepared for a second. Had no idea what to do. I was thinking, do I not go back? I'll have to repay my maternity pay. Don't know what to do. I ended up in such an awful situation and so stressed because not only did I didn't want to leave her for that amount of time. There was no way I was mentally prepared for it, but also she hadn't been looked after by anybody else. It was just me and her, and there wasn't anybody willing to help family-wise, so she would have been going to nursery full time. I ended up having 3 more months off work sick with stress, 3 more months with her, and then I had to face facts that this had to happen. It genuinely made me so poorly because I was stressed out of my mind. The separation was unreal. So she had to go to nursery 5 days a week, 8 till 5 every day. And I have never been through a part of motherhood harder than taking her when she didn't want to go, because the screaming when you hand them over, the hands round your neck, oh, it was the worst. It was the worst. Thank God she's 3 now and she doesn't remember it and she loves nursery, but you cannot see that point. And when people say, they're all right once you leave, no, she wasn't. COVID baby, different. Like, I'm sure it's always hard, but there was an extra layer there. And it was hell. It was awful. I could not go to work and concentrate. But I didn't see what else I could do. I did look for the jobs. There wasn't much part-time. It's really hard to find a part-time position. The other difficulty we had was no nursery had that amount of space at this point, because I was never expecting to have to do this, or I hadn't probably looked into it early enough. She ended up at 3 different nurseries. My mum also looked after her for a couple of hours one morning where we just couldn't get any help. That was the most anyone would do. So every day was like, oh, okay, where are we going today? Where are we picking her up from? It was so hard. That went on for some time. We are another year on from me going back to work now, and I was allowed to reapply for part-time at my work. Nothing else had come up. I reapplied without being very hopeful and was agreed that I could work 4 days instead of 5. So I got Mondays with my little girl. Those Mondays were wonderful and it helped a lot, and I was grateful for it, though really annoyed it hadn't happened before. And it was a good thing. It wasn't enough. It wasn't enough. I was doing both jobs badly. I couldn't be a good mum. I couldn't be a good teacher. I felt like I was failing everywhere. And if I was doing everything well on a certain day, I was on my knees with just exhaustion by the end of it. The mental load, it was too much. It was so hard. And I was just like, this isn't right. I'm not doing the right thing. But it was all I could get. I continued to look for jobs. I went for a couple. I didn't get them, probably because I was underprepared and knackered. And I was aware that I wasn't doing things well. People at work were aware I wasn't doing things well, and it all just added loads of pressure. Alongside that, my marriage broke down, and my husband said that he wanted to have my daughter half the time. That came as a big shock. I mean, he's a brilliant dad, but it had just not been that way. It had been, as it is with a lot of mums, because you're the ones that get maternity leave, it had been me, really. So then I ended up having to adapt to her not being with me for half the time, which when you're at work is slightly easier because you are busy. When you are at home, and I'd left the family home as well, when you are at home and there is empty space, empty time, it is so hard. I've talked about that in a couple of videos. And the long and short of it is I just wasn't seeing her enough because I was working and then she was with her dad half the time. I am all for that. I want her to have a good relationship with her dad. That's why I'm going along with it. But it's not what I would choose for me. So I thought, I just need to do this. I need to resign. I'll look into supply. I asked a couple of teachers where I worked what supply agencies they knew, if they knew anyone was particularly helpful, and got recommended ABC teachers. Had a video call, which I did from work, with somebody from there, and like a kind of mini interview, but very informal. They mainly want to know what year groups you're willing to work in, what days you want to do, that kind of thing. So now I'm in a situation where I start work about 8:15, and I drop my daughter off at nursery at 8 o'clock, and I leave at the end of the day when the children do. I don't have anything to do in the evenings. There is no parents' evenings, there's no reports, there's no displays, there's no data. All the extra stuff that I was absolutely sick to death of, I don't have to do. I just go in, do what the day is, and leave. If you don't like a school, you don't have to go back. But generally they're all fine, and even if you have a bit of a dodgy class, you're like, oh well, it's only for today. and they don't expect a lot from you. You are a glorified babysitter. You don't have to get the most amazing results when you're covering for a day. I am doing long-term supply at the moment, so I said yes to doing a post 3 days a week at the same school, and expectations have been slightly higher, but it's still been completely realistic, and they've given me an hour's PPA to kind of make up for it, in which I don't really have a lot to do, so because I don't have to do any planning, so I just catch up on marking, which is very basic marking, because that's all supply teachers have to do. So, it's fine. It's working out well. I pictured supply being you get a phone call on the morning telling you where to go. I've been doing it since Christmas. It is summer now. It's May, end of May. So it's not forever, but it's long enough to know I've never had a phone call on the morning. It's always been, oh, next Tuesday, can you go here? Or in 2 weeks' time, can you do this? Or at worst, like tomorrow and the next day, can you go here? You can say yes, you can say no. I've never had to do this, but on the morning, you can change your mind. Just say, look, I can't do that. Something's come up. Because that was another issue when I was employed by one school. If my daughter was poorly, if I had to go and pick her up, it was very difficult for anyone to understand that, and it didn't go down very well. And it happens a lot because kids get poorly. So yeah, that was difficult. This is just, okay, I can't do it, so they'll find someone else. And I have had to leave to go and pick her up once or twice, and it's always been fine. And actually, I've still got paid, but I think that depends on the school. That brings me to the pay. It sounds okay when you first hear it. It's difficult to make ends meet, and you are absolutely taking a sacrifice if you're going from a normal teacher position with normal pay to supply. Probably whatever level of a teacher you are, but I was fairly well into it. I think I was lower band M6, if that means anything to you, about to go to upper, because I'd been doing it so many years, not because I was good at it, just because it happened to go up. So the day rate that I get, and it depends on the agency, it varies slightly. For the school that I'm currently at, it comes out that I get £140 a day. That includes holiday pay, which you get just added on to every day that you work. About £14 of it a day is holiday pay. After tax, that comes out at about £100 a day. And I work 3 days a week. So £300 a week. That's okay. I can live with that. It's a drop from what I was on before. But then before I was, employed with all the extras that I had to do, and I was working 4 days. So I expected a significant drop. Not getting paid in holidays is probably the hardest part. Because then when you take out the holidays, which is, say, 12, 13 weeks, you take out things like snow days where you wouldn't get paid. Training days where nobody needs you, don't get paid. Things like that. I mean, at the time, it's like, oh, I've got an extra day off. Then you get paid and go, oh, okay. So I did work it out for the purposes of this video. Excuse me. I come out with, after tax, £11,700 a year. Topped up, mercifully, by Universal Credit, who get your wages from Inland Revenue, I want to say. I think that's what they said. Or tax credits, or whatever it is. Maybe it's all the same thing. I don't know. It goes over my head a bit. But they get the information directly from there. You don't really have to provide it. You don't really show them your pay slips or things like that. Perhaps initially when you apply, but not regularly. And they top up to whatever they think you need, whatever they think is an acceptable amount to live on. So that's what happens. But you have to wait to get your universal credit. So you have to pay all the things, and then they kind of pay you afterwards. So, for example, nursery fees are quite extortionate, and I have to pay that, which is about, for 3 days, she goes 3 days a week, and it's about £600 a month. I have to pay that. I have to come up with that, and then they pay me back, which I appreciate, but still, where do you find the money from in the first place is not easy, especially with the energy bills as they are. and all the things. So yeah, it is really difficult. We're approaching the summer holidays and I'm thinking, there's so many things I want to do with my daughter over the holidays. You know, I want to take her to a theme park. I want to do this and that, and everything costs money, doesn't it? Not everything, but a lot of things. And I'm not used to being quite this restricted because I'm used to living with 2 wages and now it's just me. So it's definitely a sacrifice, but I am able to leave work every day at about 3:30, completely put the day behind me. I can come home and get changed and almost have another half a day just to live, whereas before that wouldn't happen. Things would go on into the evening and you'd just come home, do jobs, go to bed. Now I have a bit of a chunk of time. So I still pick my daughter up from nursery at 5 because I have that kind of hour to get things done, get food ready, whatever it is, so that I can go and pick her up and I'm in a clear headspace, and I think that is important. So I picked her up the other day and we went to the park for an hour because it's summer now and it's light later. I would never have done that before. I would never have got out of work early enough. So I am 100% glad that I made this change and that I am doing supply, but be aware of the money. It's not easy. So yeah, it's all about balance, isn't it? But I figure she's only little for a little while. You know, she's 3 now. After Christmas, I need to apply for a school place. It's all going to fly. Then she'll be at school 5 days a week, and I'm not sure what I'll do at that point. I could just up my days doing supply. I could go back to a permanent position, but honestly, I don't really want to be a teacher anymore. Because I just don't believe in it. I believe in the connections with children. I believe in emotional support. I believe in their education. I don't believe in the pointless tasks that come. I believe in working hard. I love to work hard when something is worth it and when there is a point to it. When you are working hard to tick boxes for somebody else's performance management, no, life is too short for that. And I think you just have to realise that you spend a lot of time working, even me who only works part-time. And if there's something else to go for, then go for it. I mean, I've always changed jobs every few years. I know a lot of people don't do that, but I get kind of bored in one field and want to explore another. And now I don't know what's coming next. It could be something along the lines of working with children, or it could be something like fostering. I don't know. I really need to, I need to sort my living situation out before I can do that anyway, and consider how it would impact my daughter. But it's an option. And the difficulty is as well, isn't it? When you're sort of seen as a professional and you're up to a certain level, if you want to change career, it involves retraining, which involves lots of time, money, and probably taking time out, not earning anything in a lot of cases. I can't do that. So I don't know. I really don't know. I'm hoping the answer will just fall from the sky and I'll work out what to do. But if not, supply is okay for now and I can keep going with it. Any questions, please add them below. Would love to hear if you are a supply teacher, how you get on, what you think the pros and cons are. But yeah, follow your heart, do what's best. And I've always thought, take a risk, because the things you look back on that you didn't try tend to be the ones that you regret. I don't think I regret many things I have tried, even if they haven't worked out, because then you know, and the not knowing is awful. So be brave and message me if you need to. I am here. Thank you. See you soon. Bye.